So for this week, we're going to do section 9 and then part of section 10, because section 10 is a little longer and I thought it'd be good to break it up. And section 9 is really, and we could look at it real quick just to see, and it's a little different because we're not coding along. You're really just learning about concepts here in this section. So let's roll back up, right? So running at the command line is good. So, and to understand some of the ways you can do this, as a matter of fact, the thing I say in the write-up that I think the important thing I would walk away with here is how to pass arguments into your command line, something we could definitely look at as far as our dev 1. But here's what I want you to do. Since there's really no coding examples we're going to do, in this first section, I want you to create a markdown file. Now, if you've never done a markdown file, it is a way to do quick HTML markdown instead of markup. We mark it down. And in this case, I want you, and here's a link to the syntax. I want you to just take notes as you're watching this information. And the reason I want you to do that is that if we ever need to or reference something, we can come back and look at this to see how was it that Al showed us how to run our programs, our local Python programs. How did he show us how to do that? How did he pass arguments? How did he do, when he talked about the path? Now again, I don't necessarily recommend changing this because I think it's fairly simple, especially since we're using an IDE here. So, that's why on this section, I want you to do notes. All right, so let me just show you what this looks like. So first, you create a file, and when you create the file, you just, instead of a PY, you give it a MD. That MD file, and I've given you a link to a document showing the basic syntax, but I will show you here as well. Like this is my heading, maybe a heading 2, and these are concepts, like major concepts, and then you can outline things. So if you want to see what this looks like when it actually is rendered, very much like an HTML, you can just come over here. Again, I'm in VS Code, and I can hit a preview, and it'll show me what these things look like, okay? So for that section 9, I'm not requiring you to, although I think it's good to also kind of follow along to the extent that you want to do some of that work or know some of those concepts. But ultimately what I want to see in this case is a markdown file. So you only have, then I tell you also, just, it created this simple hello world Python file. And it is good to see if you can get that running on your OS. So really, here's why you had 2 files in one commit. Okay. So now on section 10, because it's longer, I want you to do 23, 24, and 25. And here's how this looks. I'm just trying to give you some visual hints. These first 2 come from the first video. And if you're not doing this, you need to be, is even as he's just doing at the command line and running things, put that stuff in a file. Hopefully you are, like on this last one where you're doing the patterns, right? So it's the idea of the greedy versus the non-greedy. This is the last one, the patterns, and then the groups and the pipes, right? So making sure you're doing those commits after each one. So in this one, you would have 3 video lectures, and I'll put this in here, but 4 files that you'll submit. So the last thing is, and I know some of you missed this part, so I'm just going to show it, is how do you submit this stuff? Well, I want you to submit your commits, right? So you can see I just did some commits here. And what I can do is in my Udemy, especially in this case, because we have 2 directories we worked in. From here, you can just do history. And that history will show you all the work that you've done towards that directory. So it is good. This is really, so if we were working in only one directory, which we'll do next week, then you can just show me the commits for that directory. But because we have commits from 2, if you do it this way, it's perfectly fine. Okay, but that's what I want to see. You do get 10 points off for not submitting those commits, so make sure you get that right. So I hope this clears up and gives you a little more information. And the reason I did it, I'll give a shout out to Kelly, because he submitted it and he's like, I'm not sure what to put in there in this markdown file. So thank you, Kelly, for working ahead. What I want there is your notes about those concepts covered here. All right. And I'm really loving regular expressions. I finished the 3 here. So I'm actually ready to move ahead with our week 10 as we move into our week 10. Is that right? Let's just make sure here. Make sure week 9. Yeah, week 9 and 10. Wow, the semester is going fast. Have a good one. Talk to you later.